and introduce yourself.
All right,
and
well,
we'll-
I'll do my spiel here, so and nobody needs to see me, so that's all right.
Just a quick question. Is this
Yeah.
being recorded?
Yes,
Oh, it's recorded?
yeah, it's been recording since so Dennis will edit that out, I'm sure, at some point, so. All right, so let's get started. So this is Jakarta EE11, going beyond the era of Java EE, and we'll get into all that, all right? So, there we go. All right, so, okay. So the inspiration for this presentation, actually we started last year when I was asked to present at the Philly Java user group. And they wanted a talk on Java, Jakarta EE11, which is coming out later this year. So I came across a blog post by Steve Millich, who's the CEO at Pyara. And so this was in March of last year. And in it, he said, from the initial lift and shift to the new namespace change in Jakarta EE9, to the significant work done in Jakarta EE10, which is the current standard release, a lot of effort has gone into making Jakarta EE a solid basis for open source developers to build upon. All right. Now, the reason he says open source is because when it was Java EE, it was not. It was closed source. So further, he said, with that done, so we've gone through all the changes, and you'll hear more about that later. There's now the opportunity to start taking Jakarta EE beyond the Java EE era. And with Java 21, at the time it was on the horizon, it's been out since September. There's now the opportunity to make sure that Jakarta EE is always leveraging the latest and greatest capabilities of the newest Java version. Build new specifications, which you'll hear about in this presentation, and further unify and simplify the platform. Good morning, I'm Mike Redlich. I'm a Java champion. I'm the lead Java Q news editor for InfoQ, if you're familiar with that publication. I've been writing for them since 2016. I'm a contract developer advocate and technical writer at Pyara, and I joined them last summer for that. The Garden State Java user group is something I've been running since 2001, although most of that time was under a different name. And we rebranded in the fall of 2020. So I'm one of the directors. And I'm on the leadership council for the Jakarta EE ambassadors. And there's pretty much a good history to that. I know it's a little beyond the scope of that, but maybe afterwards I can tell you more about it. And I've also got myself elected as a committer for the Jakarta NoSQL and the Jakarta data specifications. Oh, and by the way, I retired from ExxonMobil last year after 33.5 years of service. So it's a lot has changed since last year. I was here last year. Anybody here from last year at all? I know Mike Ewart. But yeah. So, but yeah, I retired in June, and keep myself extremely busy with all that stuff on, where the Java champion Duke is right there. So I am not bored in any way, shape, or form. So the objectives for this presentation, we talk about the evolution of Java EE and Jakarta EE. Just quick mention and description of the Jakarta EE profiles, what's coming up in Jakarta EE11, and then mention some of the updated specifications and highlight some of them with some demos. And that's the best part, right? So I recently did a webinar, Pyara, about a week or two ago. And of course, half my demos broke. Okay, that's the beauty of doing these things live. I was embarrassed, but what are you going to do? Quick poll. Who here is a Jakarta EE expert? All right. How about I've built an application using Jakarta EE? Nobody. Okay. I'm familiar with Jakarta EE, but haven't used it. Cool. I've heard some things about Jakarta EE. And then what the heck is Jakarta EE? Awesome. All right. So now we know. All right. Now we know what the audience is. All right. So we'll take a look at the evolution of this. So way back when, in 1998, maybe 1999, JPE was a Java Professional Edition. And this was the precursor to Java EE. And then once the Yeah, oh, the Java community process was formed. Had a little brain freeze on that one, sorry. In December of 1999 is J2EE, which was referred to back then, was released. And so this was the initial specification. And then we jumped to J2EE 1.3, which was in September of 2001. And you'll see there things like CMP, the connectors, Jakarta, it's Java Connector Architecture, should be JCA, that's it. The Java Message Service, XML integral support, and an improved Enterprise Java Beans 2.0 specification. In 1.4, in November of 2003, was the introduction of JAX WS. This is the web services. And then in 2006, in May, it was renamed to Java EE. And with that was the introduction of Java annotations. And I know the SE version, which is the normal, Oracle build, that's been open source is for a long time. So this was new to that. So of course the Enterprise Edition followed suit. Java EE6 in December of 2009 introduced context and dependency injection, or CDI. That was the managed beans. And then the introduction of the REST architecture, which is representational state transfer. And you've seen a lot of this with all these endpoints and all of that. And we'll look at some of that in the demo. May of 2013 was the Java EE7, was the introduction of WebSockets, the JSON JavaScript object notation, which is used everywhere now, and then support for HTML5. Now, here's where things got a little bit sticky. After Java EE7, Oracle promised to get EE8 out relatively quickly. However, that didn't happen. And in 2016, they were still dragging their feet on getting it out. So you had these initiatives known as microprofile, and I have a slide on that. And that was a microservices-based framework. And then the Java EE Guardians was also formed by a good friend of mine, Reza Rahman. And this was to, let's advocate for Java EE. It seemed to work because Java EE8 was released in August of 2017, featured support for HTTP2, and then CDI-based security. And shortly after that, they donated Jakarta or Java EE to the Eclipse Foundation, where it still is today. All right, and this was all closed source at the time. So with that change, the Java EE Guardians then became the Jakarta EE ambassadors. So I was so I was part of that as well. I felt this was good for the framework itself. So after that change, there was a community vote to choose a new name, and the whole thing. So Jakarta was chosen, and this was based on the Apache Software Foundation Jakarta Commons. I think there was a lot of little toolkits under that, but that got retired in 2011. So Jakarta EE8, and that was released in September 2019. And this was essentially Java EE8, an open source version of Java EE8. It was just, like I said, it was just a direct copy under the new name, but there was a branding issue. So the Java name is owned by Oracle. So is the JavaX namespace. So a lot of those packages in Java that started with JavaX had to be changed. So this was the whole thing with Jakarta EE9. And that was released just under 3 years ago in May 2021. Oh, I take that back, December 2020. And this was the full implementation of the Jakarta namespace, the change from JavaX to Jakarta. So if it was, JavaX.enterprise.whatever, it became Jakarta.enterprise.whatever. So that was the whole thing with Jakarta 9. There was a 9.1, just a point release. That's the only one so far. That was May of 21. Based on Java 11 and also there's still some backwards compatibility with Java 8, regular Java. Jakarta EE10 in September of 2022. And this was based on Java 17 as a baseline, and also still supported Java 11. And there were some deprecated items that were removed in the Jakarta servlet, Jakarta faces, Jakarta CDI, and things like that. So some changes were made there. So that leaves us coming up to Jakarta EE11. And the milestone 2 release, I'll probably have a slide on that, will be coming out soon. And the planned GA release is in June or July of this year. So, questions so far? Okay, cool. So we've checked off the evolution of Java EE and Jakarta EE. And these are the profiles. So there are 3 of them. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, curious.
Yeah.
So I used to remember when I was in college, Java was Java, but
Mhm.
now it's been evolved to Jakarta. Like, I'm just curious how like it evolved into that to where it is right now.
so you're talking about the Enterprise Edition or the Standard Edition?
Oh,
All right, so the Standard Edition it's still Java. That's still maintained by Oracle, and there's still downstream distributions like Azul, Amazon Corretto, Bellsoft, Liberica JDK. So they still, there's an open JDK. So that's still Java. But the Enterprise Edition, Oracle, I guess, wanted to donate it and then open it with its intent to be open source. So because of branding rules, the name had to be changed because it went from Oracle to the Eclipse Foundation. That's the difference there. That's why.
Eclipse, the IDE guys
Yes,
are the keepers of the open source version of the Enterprise Edition.
yes, yeah.
See, I got out of Java back when it was all closed source, and I said, I don't want to deal with closed source.
Right.
And that's why I left. And
Yeah.
so I wasn't paying attention. I didn't know they transferred it back to open source.
Yeah, that was only because they moved it. Yeah, they moved it. But Oracle open source regular Java in 2006. I guess when it was still Sun, but Sun Microsystems, Java was under that, right? And then Oracle bought them out, right, in 2010, I want to say. So yeah, so that all had to do with branding. So the profiles they have, there's platform, web profile, and core profile, and we'll have a slide on each. So the platform is just a standard platform for hosting all the Jakarta EE applications. I should say specifications on that. Anyway, it's designed for developers who require a full set of the Jakarta EE specifications for developing enterprise applications. So you'll see, if you remember any of the old stuff, like Java Messaging Service, JMS, is now Jakarta Messaging, stuff like that. So all the specs kind of, moved over. Then there are some new ones as well. So, and this is thanks to the Java community, building upon, what was already once there. So these are the specs that are in platform. And you'll notice the one in orange is Jakarta Data. And we kicked things off in the summer of last year. And we're on the, there was a vote to accept Jakarta Data in platform. Now this is, I forget what the count is, but there's a total of 42 Jakarta EE specifications at last count, but not all of them are on this. All right, so under the platform umbrella, you have a certain amount. Other ones are still being developed. There's Jakarta MVC for Model View Controller. No SQL didn't make it this time either on the ballot. So
Did that show on the data?
well, the idea is to sort of have this data, and then underneath it, Jakarta persistence, which is the old JPA, Jakarta persistence architecture, and then for relational databases, and then no SQL. So the idea is to sort of have this hierarchy and to work. So yeah, we've had somebody from Hibernate actually give us a lot of good input, and we've made some changes over the last month that I can't use the newest, for my demo. I have to use a slightly lower version. But yeah, so, but once it's all fully GA, then that should be fine, right? So, One thing to note is, and it's I have to laugh. RESTful Web Services, it says 3.2 there, although that's kind of hard to see because of that Zoom thing on there. There was supposed to be 4, but they decided they wanted to do a 3.2. Well, I just learned like the other day that they are going to do a version 4. So it's crazy. Yeah. But anyway, yeah. So the web profile is just a subset of the platform for web technologies, specifically target for web applications. And then it's a smaller set, right, from the platform. Jakarta Data made that one too, right? And for what? Oh, this is a keynote from the Mac. Yeah.
They should have a for Zoom. So
Oh, yeah.
You can make a zone where you keep your slide out.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah. I hear you.
It's just back to them.
But yeah, so this is the core profile. This is just another set of the platform. It's smaller for smaller runtimes for microservices, and it's focused on providing a minimal basis for cloud native runtimes, including runtimes that support built-in applications. And this was introduced in Jakarta EE10. So this was something relatively brand new. And you can see that, if you look at the names of those specifications, it's like, yeah, these belong in like a sort of this core, subset of specifications, right? Because you need RESTful web services, you need to process JSON, you need to bind potentially for POJOs or records. Annotations are important, things like that. So, all right, so we took care of that. All right, so what's new coming up? So the first milestone release, you see it's checked off. It was in December of last year. Second milestone release is planned for this month. Just scanning the mailing lists, I know. And then Ivar Grimstadt's blog post, he's talking about so all these are going to be released in waves. So there's a small set, going to be milestone 2, things like that. So all that's coming along. So as of the other day, it's not quite ready. So and then the third milestone next month, targeting next month. So I know Jakarta Data, we need to have everything together in terms of the specification, whether it passes the technology compatibility kit and things like that. So. All right, and then the fourth milestone release in May, and then the final release in June or July of this year. All right, new specifications. I mentioned Jakarta Data. There's also this micro profile JWT bridge, which is something that emerged last summer, and I have a couple of slides on that. The legacy managed bean annotation will be removed, and this was something that came and went because the regular CDI gained more traction, essentially. The security manager class that was around from the early days of Java was deprecated in Java 17. So all references to that in Jakarta EE will be removed. Okay. There will be a clarification of JPMS requirements on the platform wiki. Let's see. So basically, this has to do with the module-info class, that they're not standard portable and may change without notice. All right, so things like this. Let's see, clarification of CDI Lite. Well, essentially, it is a split of the integration related specification text into a separate document. All right, and then this is supposed to solve circular dependency problem. And then there's a propagation of the ruling from the specification committee regarding the word optional. Now, in these specifications, whether it's microprofile or Jakarta EE, it's all under the Eclipse Foundation. There are features that are optional as far as implementation. So if you are a vendor who wants to be compatible implementation of that, all the required features need to be implemented. There are some that are optional. So there was a whole, basically clarification on that. All right. So some other updates in Jakarta validation. It's going to support the records in Java, which is a new feature over the last year. Also, records will be supported in the persistence specification. And then with Java 21 being released, the virtual threads feature was finalized. And by what I mean by that is with the 6-month release cycle for Java, it gives the opportunity for developers to have preview features or incubating features for these, for them, so that people can experiment with them, provide feedback. So a lot of these features are under the name of JDK enhancement proposals will go through this sort of progression. So virtual threads was finalized last September. So concurrency will now, of course, support that. We have a framework like Helidon, for example. They rebuilt their web server from ground up using virtual threads. So a lot of that's been a lot of work has been done in that area. There's some improved integration with Jakarta CDI and Jakarta currency or concurrency in the RESTful web services. We'll see a very common use of CDI in the demo code. And then in Jakarta security, there are APIs for authorization themes, including interceptors, and an abstraction for the permission store. And there's interoperability with the microprofile JWT spec, not the bridge, and then Jakarta security. All right, so we did that. Updated specs. All right, so all of these are getting updated. Jakarta Faces with the asterisk was supposed to be 5, but the committers on that felt as if they didn't have enough for a 5, so they were just going to do a 4.1. And I had the same thing for RESTful web services, but I have to update these slides and say it's going to be a 4.0 now. Let's see. All right, that was pretty simple. All right. Anybody know who that is? Oh yeah, of course you know. How about the young folks here? Anybody?
No.
That's right.
I know, not, okay, I know this like, Francis.
No. Rodney Dangerfield. Rodney Dangerfield? Ever hear that name? Oh my God, you got to watch some of his movies. His real name was Caddyshack. He was in that. Yeah, Easy Money. But no, actually, his real name was Roy Cohn. I think Roy Cohn. I think was his real name. But yeah, very funny guy. I'll spare everybody my imitation. So, all right. So we'll yes. So I want to just mention Payara Cloud. This is a relatively new cloud service released in November of 2022. It's the next generation of fully managed cloud native application runtime. Okay. So this is actually quite powerful. I have it up and running. And so I'm going to use, I'm going to show some of this and also Payara Micro, real easy way to deploy a Jakarta EE application. So this is a paid service. There is a 15-day trial. All right, so here's this bridge, okay? So one of the things that was happening over the last couple of years, so microprofile, I know I have a microprofile slide. There was a configuration spec, just called config. Very powerful, very easy to use. You can use it in Jakarta EE applications, right? And Jakarta folks came up with their own config. I'm like, well, why? And it took me a while to get an answer that was satisfactory. But then all of a sudden there was like, well, Jakarta security wanted to take microprofile JWT over there. I'm like, wait a minute, this is not a way to harvest specs from microprofile, I mean, so JWT is JSON Web Token, right? So it's for security. So anyway, so I got myself involved, and what happened was over last summer, there was this bridge that was proposed, all right? So it's a collaboration between the Jakarta EE and microprofile working groups. Now, the Eclipse Foundation has a number of these working groups. Those two being, part of their set. There's one for OSGI, there's one for the Eclipse IDE, I think, and then so on. All right. So this is, you know, a way for organizations to be part of this. And so the Garden State Java User Group is one of them. And so we participate in that. So, so this is a way for Jakarta security apps to build on the micro profile JWT specification, right? And the idea is to eliminate the duplication of effort and circular dependencies. And it's a new standalone specification in the micro profile set of specs. And the first order of business was to move the optional section of micro profile, JWT, to the new bridge. So there you see a representation of how that's supposed to look. We have security on the left, JWT on the right, and then in the middle is the bridge. And so here's the micro profile set of specs. So let me come over there, sort of. All right, so there are, hopefully people can hear me now. There are the core umbrella on the left. So this is version 6.1, which just came out about a year ago with that. So you'll see config, as I mentioned. All right, and then here's JWT. And then these were the original specs, 3 or 4 of them, that were the original specifications in 2016, but they're under Jakarta and core profile. There are standalone specs for developers to use. Oh, okay, thank you. So, but anyway, so actually telemetry is new because it took over for tracing. Tracing and open tracing and open census got together to go, to open telemetry. So it was decided to move tracing to standalone and then fully support telemetry. LRA is long-running actions, and I can't give you a real good description of that because I'm still trying to figure it out. So you have some stuff for reactive, context propagation, and then GraphQL, which has been up and coming for the last few years, right? So this JWT bridge, and I think we're going to target version 7 to have that specification sitting inside it. So that's the deal. So, oh, I can do this and sits in. Yeah, okay, there we go. There. All right. All right, live demo. What am I going to do first? Now I got to sit down. All right, let's see.
People will be able to see the screen.
Yeah, they can see the screen. Yeah, okay. Yeah. All right, so I have my favorite IDE open. And so I didn't get a chance to update this. I know the JWT bridge has changed a bit, but I wanted to give you an idea of what's supposed to happen. Let's see, authentication. All right. So there's this new annotation that they proposed, and it's still there. It's still available, but it's changed somewhat. The parameter list does not contain these other annotations anymore, all right? So what I did, since the spec wasn't implemented yet, I just placated the compiler to, to at least for it to compile, right? And see how you'd use it. So I just came up with the, like say this one, and came up with what would be in there, that kind of thing. The application, the way you would use it, all right? So if you're doing a servlet, all right, you got web servlet for that, okay? And then in a security application, let's see, we get that there, there we go. You want to declare some roles. So this one I chose admin, audit, and user, all right? And then a way to constrain roles, like maybe just everything for admin. And so here is this annotation. And then I put in here, this is, these are the, in the parameter list of this annotation, which are other annotations. And then in the application itself, since it is a servlet, it will, oh, here's inject, by the way. This is part of CDI, context and dependency injection. You can inject an instance of a class or something like this, right? And here's how we'd use config. All right, you'd use the config property and then give it the name. And this corresponds to the micro profile dash config properties. And you'll see their message equals welcome to the, blah, blah, blah. All right. And this would be for, defining public keys. I have a better application that somewhat works. It's not in here yet. I need to still do that. But this will give you an idea of what's what. And then everything else is, you have your do get method in Jakarta servlet. And just for grins, let's see if this actually works, because I noticed I hadn't used it in a while. And so this is Payara Cloud. And we can make this a little bit bigger. So these are all the namespaces that I created. And then if you click on one of these, JWT demo, all right. So what you see here is, some metrics that can be displayed. All right. And then once you, all you got to do to deploy is tell it upload. And then it does it automatically, right? And then here, let's see if this actually works. Oh, there we go. Okay. So in the source code, and then this is available to you on GitHub, by the way. All right. So in the source code, I have this, right? The index file. All right. So you'll see here a normal login box, right? And the way I set this up was real secure, Mike, and then the password is PASSWORD. Good computer security, right? All right, and then once it passes that, you'll see in the source code I had all this stuff. User has role admin true, and then I set myself up for that. And so I'm not using JWT. I'm using an identity store to sort of define that for demo purposes. But I said I've been working on one that actually uses tokens to do the login right there. So I need to have that set ready for DevNexus next month. So it gives me a little more time to do that. So yeah, so this is Payara Cloud. Pretty nice. The next thing is got to keep an eye on the time here. So close all tabs. Jakarta data is brand new. Now I have a NoSQL database. It is a beer application. I love craft beer. All right. I'm just, whenever my wife and I go away to someplace new, I got to have the local stuff, right? So this is MongoDB. It's a very popular NoSQL database. And so I have here two collections. Now notice the difference. I say collections instead of tables. All right. So there's the difference. All right. Because in that everything is JSON based, as you see right here. Although when you see the output on a terminal screen, it'll have the curly braces and all that. All right. So I have a beer class. All right. And it's, again, just to save some time, I know it's pretty simple if you know Java, POJOs, that kind of thing. I got a repository. Now, one of the things about this repository stuff, you can define or you can use built-in Jakarta data. There's a data repository. There's a basic repository that builds off that. And then, so data repository has nothing. It's empty. You can do whatever you want. It's awesome. Basic repository has a few of these find by or find all methods that you can use. All right, built in. And then you can define others. All right, that's the whole idea behind it. All right, so this one here is extending, beer repository is extending off a data repository. All right, and then so you notice I have a few things, find by ID, find brewer ID in, those kinds of things, right? Here's a save, okay, and remove. And so on and so forth. I have a beer type that there's just enumeration to have, ale, stouts, all the different kinds of beers. Resources defines those endpoints. Now this is like REST stuff, right? So let's see, where are the, oh, here we go. So you notice here, import Jakarta, WSRS, this is all, and that should not be a star. I need to fix that. So probably just need a couple of them. So anyway, yeah, so here's where you say, all right, here's the path beer. All right. And then you can do beer / and then ID number. All right, and then you can get those, from there. I am gonna add myself a to-do in here to fix this. You know. Okay, this is the IntelliJ IDEA thing. So if you have it, you can click on to do down here and you can click all your to-dos and you can go fix them. And you can also say fix me too. So, all right. So, yeah, and then brewer's the same thing. It just models what you have, the ID, the name, and the city of the brewery, and so on and so on, right? So let's run this. So this is going to be a real-time thing here. I'm going to recompile in real time. This is not Memorex. Oh, there's a word I haven't heard in a long time. Shows our age there, right, Mike? Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, and I'm gonna make sure that we're in JDK 21. JDK 20. Oh, I have 22 already. That's right. I forgot. Yeah. JDK 22 comes out next week, by the way. So yeah, got that, and then we'll do it here too. So I should have done this earlier, but forgot. Yeah, all right. So we'll go to data. Okay, we'll do MVN clean package. Anybody familiar with Maven? Okay. So this should look, and then let's see if this actually compiles. Okay, beautiful. So now we have a WAR file, right? All right, it's right here. It's data.war, right? So, all right. So this is Payara Micro. It is a lightweight part of the server. It's just a jar file. And if we do here, if you look at this, you'll see in the second terminal window there, the middle one, right? You'll see the jar file. And I had the latest one that was just released yesterday. So I had the March version, which is this one. It's a jar file. No, it's the same extension. Yeah, it says jar at the end. Oh, in the middle one. Yeah, in the middle. Well, the war is up in this one. I have Payara Micro. I'm in the directory of Payara Micro. Yeah. Yeah. So all you got to do is java-jar, and then Payara, and then 3.jar, and then let's see. All right, /user/local. Apps. No, that's portfolio. Portfolio, Jakarta EE11, data, target, and then EA .war. All right, ready? There we go. So this is going to do a bunch of stuff for a few seconds. So if you didn't have JDK or Java 21 installed, this would not actually execute. It's fun. It really is. There's a lot of changes. So we see we're successful because it gave us the initial URL. Okay. And we can pop that in the browser. All right. We can. All right. So I have my welcome screen here. Right. And then the main application basically goes to some welcome to, right? You know, nothing too exciting. I got to make that a little bit better. But then click here for a list of beers in the database. And since we have MongoDB running already. So there you go. So this is all in JSON, right? It's all, you know. All right. So you see what I have in the database here. You know, I have, you know, when I got into NoSQL, I still had the normalizing tables mentality. So you can do this if you can sort of do a MongoDB version of an inner join. Is very complicated. You know, got to make sure you have your parens right, and or not your parens, your curly brace right, and stuff like that. And I tried to program it in Python. It didn't work out too well, but you can do it. And I have somewhere I have it. You could do. I'm not going to do it here, but But you see, I have a brewer ID in that, all right? And so you can do the same thing. So if you want to know what the fifth one is, and of course, I need to develop a web front end, an HTML file for this kind of thing, right? So this gives me the fifth. The fifth is the Vanilla Scoop by Southern Tier. And then the same thing for brewer, right? So these are the brewers I have. I put a shout out to Lone Eagle in Flemington. And then the same thing with the third brewer, that kind of thing. So Maine Beer Company up in Freeport, Maine. So there's other things I need to program in there, but you'll see the URLs that are available. You can have this one too, which gives you some information about the application itself. It's kind of interesting. So we did that. So, oh wait, maybe it wasn't the DB part. Huh. Oh wait, there's a different. Oh, heck. The IP address is different. Yeah, I just caught that. No. Oh yeah, wait. Oh, this gave me a new one. It wasn't 10.0. Oh, okay. Anyway, all right. I'm not going to dwell on it. I got another 15 minutes left. So there is a way to do that, and you can if you look at if you clone the repository, the way you would add a beer or a brewer is basically using the curl command. If anybody's familiar with the curl or curl, you would do this kind of thing to add a beer to the database. So I want to get in some other specs too before. All right. So, here's a description of Jakarta data. I just went into it without doing the slides. All right. Been a while since I gave this talk. All right. So Jakarta data is a way to, allow easy access to database technologies. And this was, the intent is to use this for relational databases and NoSQL databases. All right. And again, with all this stuff, it's splitting the persistence from the model with several features. And everything is based on a repository interface where the framework itself will implement. Don't know the source code, it's in there somewhere, yeah. All right, the current version is milestone 2, but I think maybe I'm getting confused. Milestone 3 might be on the verge of being released. So when it's ready to go, it will be a 1.0. And the compatible implementations, they're all a work in progress, but I will say Open Liberty has done the most amount of work. Every one of their monthly releases has something to do with Jakarta data. And then Micronaut, Hibernate, Quarkus, and Wildfly are working on implementations as well. All right, so what's new? Support for CDI extensions. There's the new basic repository interface I mentioned. Got new methods, insert and update. And there's also a CRUD repository interface, so that's at the same level. But I think it extends off of basic and the basic repository. There was a pageable repository, but that's not gone. That's what I mean about things changing in a hurry. And then new annotations to insert, update, delete, and save. All right, so I did the live demo already. All right, so Jakarta security. All right. This defines a standard for creating secure applications, right? All right, the current version is 3. The updated version will be 4. And in Jakarta EE10, Eclipse Soteria is the compatible implementation. And then a to be determined version of it will be for Jakarta EE11. I have not looked this up yet to double check if they've defined that, but it will be something newer, of course. All right, so there's a user choice of authentication mechanism. And let's see, so there's various different ways like client cert and all these others that are there, right? So there's support for all that. And as I mentioned before, interoperability with microprofile JWT. And there's alternatives to a roles allowed annotation. Now, roles allowed, the original one is defined in Jakarta annotations. So it's basically a warehouse of annotations that can be used. All right, they're going to define their own because it's only used and defined by enterprise beans. and they would like to have an interceptor-based version of this. So it pretty much is going to do what the original one does, but it's going to be owned by Jakarta Security and have some additional features added to it. And then again, the references to Security Manager. Okay, live demo. All right. So let's see, let's close some of these out. Okay. All right, so here's an identity store, and I had this in the JWT Bridge application here. The identity store here really is just, here's where I defined mic and password. All right, again, it's all clear text, and you should be using some kind of security mechanism other than this. But it's great for demos, right? So the application itself is a servlet. So I'm not going to show the servlet. Well, I could show it, yeah, but again, you saw this earlier, right? There's a security, right? And then, the roles allowed, et cetera, et cetera. And it's kind of the same as it was, except it's just using identity store. So that was pretty much straightforward. You saw that already, right? Yeah, that's it there. So again, you can get this on my GitHub. And then play around with it, and if there's something breaks, please let me know. So, all right, Servlet, it's a server-side API for handling HTTP requests. This is the old Java servlet from way back when. This is one of the originals, right? Long time. So that's been, of course, being maintained, right? Current version is 6. 6.1 will be the new version, and then Glassfish, which is another application server that was started by Sun back in the day. And then Oracle inherited it, and then they donated that to the Eclipse Foundation. So it's maintained by them. And I know the guys who run this, these guys are just, they're awesome. They know their stuff. They, on this, on security, and so it's good. And then there'll be, I think there's 7.0.12 is the GA. There's a milestone 2 of version 8, something like that. That's going on right now. So, all right. So, so what's new? Let's see. All right. Allowing control of status code and response when sending a redirect. I have to admit that I'm using some notes here. So, yeah. So there's support for additional status codes, the 200, 400 and all those, right? There'll be support for 301, which is moved permanently, 302, which is found, and 303, which is see other, all right? A query string attribute, to error dispatches, and then allow constants for new HTTP status codes, which has to do with the Internet Assigned Numbers Authority, or IANA. All right, so they're going to be support for some of those. All right, and we're gonna, and just in the sake of time, we're getting near the end here. So actually, let me just run it actually, and this is a servlet one. Yeah. The last couple of slides are just where was my? Oh, here, that's right. Servlet demo. All right. Okay. All right. So basic REST application just says hello, Mike. Yeah, real exciting. Oops. There's a hello world servlet. Okay. Yeah. And these are all the examples. Your coffee shop. There's a coffee shop preferences, coffee, and a coffee dashboard. Oh, I didn't find any. So yes, we got to run this first. Coffee shop preferences. All right, select your coffee. Okay, I like mine with milk, but I have to add that in there myself. Let's put latte in there and then submit. And basically, because I checked latte, there's some verbiage that gets printed to the screen. Nothing, but you can see where you can build upon something like this, right? So that's all in the source code there. So let's see, we'll go back to here. And all right, so we've done all that. And then, yeah, if you want to get involved, you know, a lot of people think open source contributions have to do with source code. Not true. I tell you, committers, leads of those specs, they appreciate people, things like documentation. You see glaring error in the documentation, you know, just go through the normal, you know, GitHub process and, you know, clone a repository, you know, that kind of thing, and do the pull request stuff, etc. There is just so much you can do. For example, I was writing a news item on something with Micronaut, and they had their shell script for, I think it was had something to do with Micronaut data, but yeah, and I ran their script and there was an error, and I looked at it, and after about 5 minutes, I'm like, oh, here it is. I did the usual thing, they accepted it, you know, so, you know, did the pull request, and yeah. I liked what Tanya Obradovic, she's the Jakarta EE program manager at the Eclipse Foundation, very nice lady. She's very involved with Jakarta EE, and it was at a recent conference a couple months ago where she had this SEED acronym, to share, embrace, engage, and develop. Yeah, so that, I thought that was kind of cool. So just wanted to add that in there. This is like, you know, sort of like the attributes of open source contributions. And then if you want to get involved too, share your own Jakarta EE experience. You know, I mean, there's plenty, right? There's plenty to do. You got all these specifications. You know, we've had some new folks on Jakarta data more recently, and it's great. We have a person who's an expert on the technology compatibility kit, or TCK. Great, you know. I mean, that's something I couldn't do right now, you know, stuff like this. So it's a great community. There are so many great people in the Java community, I think, you know. And so anyway, so yeah, if you want to get involved, you know, take a look. And so and I have some acknowledgements. Steve Millage, of course. Ivar Grimstad, who I mentioned earlier. He's the one who gave me all those nice graphics, you know, for the specifications. So Adam Yoho is a backend developer, and he and I had some quite nice conversations about the JWT bridge. The same with Sergey Beryoskin. Otavio Santana, he is the lead spec, or the spec lead on Jakarta data and Jakarta NoSQL. And then Max Aruda, you know, he's a newer committer. And then he helped me out on some of this source code to make my beer app, which was just command line, to, you know, more of a REST application. So I thank him for his help on that. So that's, you know, it's all about working together, right? So, and also David Blevins at Tommy Tribe, you know, so we had some nice conversations about various things in Jakarta EE world. So, and here's my contact info, to send me email, X, Twitter, or Twitter X. No, I'll never get used to saying X. And then redlich.net's my regular website. And then you can get these slides at the portfolio page. And then that's my GitHub account. You can go there and clone, you know, the Jakarta EE11 repository and any other repository you'd like to experiment. So, and then kind of early in the day for this, but, you know, remember how I said I'm a craft beer enthusiast? So there you go. But thank you for coming. Enjoy the rest of the conference here, and we'll see you around. So,
Question.
yes.
How do you compare Jakarta